Hey, thank you for joining us. This is FYI, I am Damage, episode 3. I'm with Albania, the Educational Specialist, and thank you for being here. I know you
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
you really jumped at the chance to be on the podcast when I put it out and put the idea out. And full disclosure, you are sister to my wife. You're my sister-in-law, and saw the idea of the podcast. You jumped at the chance, and I want to say thank you. And why was it? Why when you heard the idea or you heard the intro? What was that itch that got you to be like, you know what, I want to be on it without me approaching you first?
Well, to me, as soon as I heard about the idea, it's something that I've always felt that I kind of wanted to do. I just didn't know how or how to share my story or things that I've gone through in life that now I feel like I've made me stronger. So, in essence, I felt that this was an opportunity that I can reach other people that have experienced things that I've gone through and without being a dialogue between me and somebody else, and like they feel like they cannot say certain things, but here you're just listening to me, and I'm in all hopes that they're just comfortable. um I personally think is a great idea now that things have become so hard for a lot of people, especially people during the pandemic. People changed. Some people gotten used to not being around other people. Some people have gotten into really depressed situations. And
Mm-hmm.
some people have gone through even more trauma that I can even imagine.
Right.
And I wonder how are they going to come out of that? Even now that things have gotten a little better with the mask lift and social distancing kind of changed a little bit and being, we got a little bit more freedom, but are we? How do we deal with what has COVID has left behind?
Right. Right.
So I feel that there is always help that people can get, but maybe they don't know if they can and they don't know how to get the help. So maybe this podcast, maybe me expressing my story has nothing to do with COVID really, but
Mm-hmm.
in reality, it is a situation that I felt lost, confused, um, with an extremely amount of pain that I felt I was not going to be able to survive,
Right.
which is what many people that are now trying to deal with the fact that COVID affected them that way are have to deal with. So I want to share how I was able to come up and be strong and
Mm-hmm.
kind of say, like I always say, keep it moving
That's
and,
right.
survive.
Absolutely. I mean, and what we're touching on, which is, in the title that I listed this episode, and you gave your thumbs up, is one of life's deepest loss, and we're here because you were pregnant with twins. You've had a miscarriage with them, and we're going to explore how you going through such something so tremendous. It's traumatically tremendous. I mean, it's insane to think. I'm a man. I cannot even begin to put myself in your position. So we're gonna delve into how you came out of this. Hopefully stronger than ever, not as before, as ever, and just keep getting stronger through it. Because my personal opinions aside of it, it's we're just going to touch on your strengths and you getting to this point where you are now.
Yeah, it's a tough topic still. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, November 2013, I found out I was going to have a baby again. I already had my son Jaden. He was 4 at that time.
Mm,
Yeah, 4. And I was like, okay, great. Then December, for sonogram, I found out it was twins. It was so exciting.
mm.
It was like it was one of the most amazing news. It was the day after Christmas too, so it was great. So to me, it was at first I was shocked, like, what am I gonna do? And I remember calling my sister RG first, like, oh my god, like, what am I like? I felt like I was gonna get in trouble, even though I was married. I don't know why. it's like I take care of my kids, but I felt like my mom was gonna be like, okay, another one. So anyway, so yeah, so it was very nerve wracking at that moment. But a lot of people said, that's such a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
So here comes, and I'm enjoying the moment. Find out that it's twins. February, I find out right before Valentine's. Pretty ironic. Found out I was having a boy and a girl.
Wow.
So I automatically thought of my baby shower theme. And
first set of twins in the family?
In my family, yes.
Okay.
My husband does. In his family, it's a couple of set of twins.
Oh, okay. Yes.
His father and has a twin with a female, and there are twins. Cousins that he has. Right. Shout out to Natasha and Amanda. So there was already sets of twins, so it was cool. But usually they say it depends on the mom's side. I don't really know if there was somebody else in my mom's side, but
me neither.
So in reality, it was like big for me. So that was one of the biggest moments of my life. So yeah, February 13, I found out I was having a boy and a girl, and I was already planning that baby shower. It was going to be the Flintstones with Pebbles and Bam Bam theme.
And I want to say this, you're an amazing party thrower, party planner, along with your sisters. You guys, when you guys plan a party, you plan a party. Yeah, like it's an event.
Yes, we're about to go
party. It's
all the way to Bedrock with this party. Oh man, so it was like it was great. I remember my husband, Jose, he actually gave me a Pandora bracelet with a little teddy bear symbolizing the boy and the girl for Valentine's. So that was like really big for me. It was cute. But then unfortunately on February 23rd, basically just 10 days later, my water broke. So I went into a preterm labor basically. So I was rushed to the hospital. And they say, yeah, it was, my water broke. They couldn't figure out what was happening. The babies were still there. Everything seemed okay. They wanted to figure out if they can make it to being viable, which is really 24 weeks. Mm-hmm. And at that moment, I can't recall, it was like maybe 17, almost 18 weeks at that moment. So I was like, wow, this is going to be a while. But I was willing to do whatever it takes. And I was in the hospital. Just waiting for news. The doctors basically kept coming in, preparing me to tell me like, this baby's not gonna make it, because as soon as your body goes into labor, it's going to continue the labor process. There's nothing that we can do. Mm-hmm. And they kept saying, if we do anything that kind of stitch you could have an infection and you can die. But at that moment, you hear all that stuff and it's like, you don't care. I just want my baby. I just want this baby to make it. And it was only the boy. The baby A was the one who broke the bag of water. And no one can tell me why. There was nothing that they could do either.
Right. Okay.
So there I was in the hospital for days, just hoping that things would get a little better. Mm-hmm. But every single day, it was just another way for them to tell me, like, we could just take this baby out now because it's not going to make it. And if it does make it and he comes out at 24 weeks, he's going to have all these deformities and are you going to be able to deal with that? And all I started saying in my head is, I just want my baby. Even though I was thinking, I'm not going to lie, I was thinking sometimes, like, can I really deal with that? Because for those of anybody that knows Jaden, that was a handful. And at 3-4 years old, I was like, how am I going to be able to deal with all of this? But I really wanted my baby. So I was willing to, I wasn't listening. I just wanted my baby.
Right. Okay. And for those that haven't experienced this, the fear of a miscarriage, and we can just roll it a little bit back, like walk us through the mindset. And was there any mental support provided or offered? And did you take it? Did someone had the forethought to approach you in that sort of space to say, hey, look, whether the outcome is good or not, your mental needs to be looked after? Was that there?
Yeah, and that's a very good question, because let me tell you, shout out to Lawrence Hospital, because that hospital has tremendous or amazing nursing staff. Those nurses would sit there. They would talk to me nicely. They never gave me a moment to think that my baby was not going to make it. They would encourage me. They would sit there if I wanted to speak to someone. They provided all the support. They were just listening. They weren't telling me what to do, which the doctors are, of course, doctors are supposed to tell you what's the worst case scenario.
Right.
But they gave me the peace of mind for me to be able to feel like, okay, it's okay that I'm still trying to keep this baby.
Right.
So they would sit there and I would just vent. Sometimes they would try to distract me and they would try to talk to me about my son that I had at home. And I would show them pictures. So it helped. Oh, my job was just to stay in bed until those babies made it to 24 weeks.
Right.
And the support that I got at the hospital really helped. I felt like I would have definitely gone insane not knowing if there is a chance that those babies were going to make it or not.
And then you were in that mindset to accept that help, even though they were doing it, it seems like indirectly.
Yes, because they basically continued to let me know what was going to happen, but said, but we'll see.
Right.
But you're doing great. There are no infections. As long as there was no infections, there was hope.
That's a big thing.
Because the infection, and they kept saying the infection will be the key thing, that your fever will spike. So that I always was checking my fever. And they have to go in, because then I would die, and they would have to take my baby. So I had antibiotics to keep everything at normal level. So as long as those things remain, I had hope. Okay. The entire time I was in the hospital, I swear I became a science teacher. I researched every single article, every single scenario and I did the journals, the real journals.
Yeah.
Not the Wikipedia. Just to give me some type of hope of like, what are the chances that somebody who pre-prom, that's the term they used, at 17 weeks was going to be able to make it. And there were a lot of articles that kind of gave me hope. And I said, nah, we're making it. Ooh, I turned to God. I'm a Catholic, yes, but it's like most Catholic, we try to we call Jesus when we need him the most, and that was me. I had a lot of friends that brought me stuff from baby Jesus, praying. That was big for me. I needed people to pray for me, and I felt that also gave me a lot of strength, knowing that people were in agreement of me wanting to sacrifice up to the last minute of my entire situation, as long as these babies can make it.
Okay. Now, the fear of this loss, it's always in the back of your head. You're dealing with this. At any point, did you have a moment of clarity where you were able to steady yourself and strengthen yourself in case things took a turn for the worse? I know you said about your faith, and I do believe in that. Not when you only have trouble, you pray to whomever. So was there, during this journey of yours, was there like moments of clarity where you, regardless of what happens, you knew you were going to be okay, or just something struck you that says, you know what, I'm going to stand up and not collapse?
Yeah. Well, to answer that question, I basically have to kind of end the story of my journey. By March 6th, which is why this week has been a very emotional one. By March 6th, I couldn't hold the baby anymore. The doctor sent me home, and at home, I tried to use the bathroom, and the umbilical cord collapsed of the baby boy, my baby Christian, because he did have a name by then. And my baby Christian was born sleeping. So he was basically stillborn. because he didn't die in the womb. He died as soon as he came out. His lungs weren't developed and he wasn't able to breathe. So he passed away March 6th at 8:30 in the morning. I was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance because my husband was able to see the umbilical cord in the toilet. So we were collapsing down, like, so it was very crazy. And then I stayed in the hospital. I believe that after that, and I delivered the placenta, but the other placenta, because they were fraternal twins, was fine, that the girl will be able to make it. They kept telling me that there's a high chance that once your body goes into labor, it won't stop. But my body defied that and actually stopped. So all I had to do was stay in the hospital. And of course, again, no infection because that was already open. The uterus is open. Well, my cervix, that's basically what it says. So it could be even going to the bathroom could cause me some type of infection. So we were praying for that not to happen.
Right.
But then unfortunately, and I felt it in my heart, March 12th, it happened basically March 11th at night. I didn't want my husband to go and I felt something weird. I felt a little bit of leakage. And unfortunately, the bag of water for baby girl Kayla burst also. So it was trickling down. So the doctor said, there is not much more that you can do. Your body's going into labor. And I was saying in my head still like, no, that's impossible. I can still hold her. By this time, I was already 20 weeks. So I was able to hold him a little bit, another additional 2 weeks. So baby boy passed at 19 weeks and baby girl at 20. And I went when I was trying to like not deliver, but unfortunately the body does what it wants to do. And I went to actually delivery. I was having contractions really bad. And I'm like, yo, she's only 20 weeks. Why is this hurting so much in my head? And crying. And I was like, I felt defeated. I felt like I tried so hard to keep these babies inside of me for so long. And even the whole time that I was there, I thought about my students and my school, my job, like everybody that was fighting for me to be there. Like I'm a workaholic. So for me not to be at work for those days, and it was killing me. And I was like, I need this to serve a purpose. I want my babies to be here. And I said, I did it for them. But then unfortunately it didn't happen. And when I went into labor, it was really traumatic. It was about 10:30 in the morning, but I was losing so much blood and I was crying. So I think my body went into complete shock and I ended up having a seizure there. I don't recall too much what happened right there. My husband says my eyes rolled back and my sister was there and she was crying and they called the doctor and they rushed me into the operation room because my body temperature had dropped. And yeah, I remember feeling really cold.
Right.
And at that moment, my heart rate was too high. So there was a huge risk that I was going to die. So they rushed me to try to take the baby out for me to deliver the baby. And that way, so they can help me get my body back in temperature and get blood from everywhere because I had lost so much. But I remember at that moment, and I will never forget, looking at the doctor that was rushing me because I came back into my sense when they were rushing me to the OR.
Right.
And I looked at him and I said, I already lost 2 babies. I have a son at home. Please don't let me die. And I will never forget those words because I knew I had lost the battle at that moment. But to me, it was so important that I came back for Jaden because I couldn't lose everything. I couldn't lose me at that moment as well. As many people may think that, yeah, it's fine to you die and then the babies and you're with them. Some people may even think that yeah, I don't want to survive after something like this. But then you got to think about what you leave behind.
That's right.
And to me, the moment that I felt they kept saying that my heart rate was too high and, my blood pressure, I didn't have enough blood. They needed to find blood everywhere. But I'm hearing these things and I'm like, wait, there was a chance that I'm gonna die. Right. That's impossible. So that was, sorry. No. That was very that gave me the strength to speak on it, to be able to deal with that, because at that moment I realized it was important that I fought for myself. I lost the battle fighting for my babies, but I couldn't give up on me, so that way I can be back for Jaden. Right. So he gave me that strength for me to come back in.
No, that's a wonderful thing. And before all of this started just going left and going through what you just described, because you touched on something where you were reading into everything and going into it, like I said, going into medical journals and not just, Googling stuff, but how acutely aware of how acutely aware of your awareness of your body and what does it go through. Like it heightens because you care. You're going through something. You don't want a loss, and you're going through something. Now you're paying attention to the literature, and that's one thing. But then you're looking inward, and how hyper vigilant you were about everything going on in your body before that event.
Before everything happened, it's crazy because people don't know what that is actually a real thing. Being pregnant is a miracle. Our bodies, the female body is made, is very acidic. So it's made to destroy every single sperm cell that goes in there. So that little baby that goes all the way up there, you are a miracle. I didn't know any of that. I did have a miscarriage prior to the twins. It was very early stage, about 7 weeks, close to 7 weeks. It was, it was heartbreaking, of course. But I had just gone to like one appointment. I didn't get the chance to hear a heartbeat. So at least it wasn't that traumatic at that moment as how I felt for my twins. It was something that I never really mentioned to anyone because it's like something that people say. People don't speak about being pregnant earlier than 3 months because they know that if something, God forbid, happens, then you have to deal with talking about what happened and bringing up those painful feelings. And not a lot of people are prepared. Our bodies are not prepared for that. But I remember trying to educate myself so much about what happened, why did it happen, how could I have prevented it. And so the literature, the groups, the work, everything that I went around looking at similar situation, taught me something new about my inner self, my body, about even just the female anatomy in general. And I feel like I became an expert. I kind of am now. I can actually tell the gender of a baby and a sonogram. I think I did so many of those. But yeah, I learned a lot and I feel grateful because it kind of prepared me for the possibility of having more children and how to take better care of myself, even though there was nothing that I did that could have prevented that situation with my twins. The body just did what it wanted to do. I didn't do anything, any heavy lifting, nothing. There was nothing.
There's always that question, why? Everyone does like, why this, why? And it's a question that rarely gets answered.
Yeah. I love science. I believe in science. I believe in God, but I believe in science. So I need to know. My thing was, I need to know. You can't say, oh, it must have been God's will. Oh, God just gained another angel. I'm like, well, why I gotta take mine? So to me, it doesn't go with the idea of just let it be. I needed an answer. So that was something that I kept trying to get from doctors. Like, what happened with my cervix? How did it open? There are some speculation that it was an infection that kind of eats the umbilical cord lining, the lining of the uterus. One of those
Right.
But obviously, it was something that made the placenta rupture, and all of a sudden,
Right.
the leakage began, and then it led to everything opening up and
Right.
breaking.
But it's great that you took the initiative to educate yourself, and trust me, I'm in the same boat with those, and whoever does that, I can personally appreciate a person who doesn't know how to comfort another person, but then regurgitates those cookie cutter comfort lines,
Mm-hmm.
to say. And to me, it just, I just say, hey, thank you, going through my trials and tribulations, and, yeah, it's,
And it's so annoying because people will really tell you, "Oh, but it's okay. You could have more." Like, why?
you say that, yeah, and they say
Like
it
that
at
thing.
that point. Like,
Oh my God.
I'd rather just somebody say, hey, I'm sorry.
The one word that, the one sentence that someone did say to me was, I'm trying to remember, I think it was my former principal when I was in high school. She said, "This too shall pass." It
Wow.
was one that I'd be like,
Wow.
okay. But when I heard it, I was like, yes, this will pass. I remember a lot of painful situations that I've been through in my entire life, trials and tribulations, how people say, but they pass. And it kind of gave me that strength to know that I was not going to die of suffering, right?
Mm,
Suffering or pain. And it helped me kind of wake up and realize that this is not the end unless you let it be the end. And I was trying to make sure I was not letting that be the end.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I decided to look at my loss as something that was going to build me as a person, not destroy me. So, and I swear it really worked. I gained a lot of strength. I feel like I'm very strong. I'm very independent because of what I went through. I made sure that I was kind of either self-sufficient, that I didn't have to depend on anybody to help me heal, that I can heal myself.
Mm.
So it's like I became my own therapist at that moment, but that took a long time. At first, I looked for help because I realized at that moment, yes, I am damaged. So I absolutely realized that
Yeah.
if I didn't get help, I would lose more. I would lose my son, my husband, my job. So I didn't want it to be a taboo where, you can't talk about your child or
Hmm.
your miscarriage or like, oh, your stillborns. You can't talk about any of that as society sees it.
Right.
So I try to make it part of me. When people ask me about them and I mention them as Christian and Kayla, yes, those are my angels in heaven, and made it seem as the same way that I can have a child here, I have two children up there. Three, if we let's count my
Oh, that's an amazing
my
way to
little
look at
baby.
it. That's an amazing
So
way to
that's
look at it.
that's how it kept me going. And then I saw movies. There was a beautiful movie called there was one documentary made in a Lifetime, Return to Zero. Ah,
Mm.
if you ever get across that, definitely. It was in Lifetime, and it was so weird that it happened to be coming out during the same time that I was experiencing this. And it's basically the same idea: a couple happy, then they lose their baby, and now it's back to zero. They have nothing. And how to come up for that. But I saw another film and read the book. Actually, it's called Heaven is for Real, and it tells the story about a little boy who was going through surgery, and he basically almost died. But the entire population of his father's town, who was a priest, was praying for this kid to make it. And then he actually, thank God, made it there, of course. And when he saw his mom, he mentioned to his mom about a little girl, and the mom was like, "What little girl are you talking about?" And he said, "She's like, she looks like this, and she says she loves you very much, and that her name was, I forgot her name, but she mentioned the
Hmm.
name. He mentioned the name, and the mom was in shock. And it happened to be that the mom had a stillborn little girl years before that boy was born, and he met his sister in heaven.
No.
So every time that somebody in our family passes away, or somebody that kind of knew me a lot, Like I have a couple of people up there that I really love dearly still. Um, I always say like, oh, I hope you're taking care of my babies up there. I hope you're taking care of my twins. So mentally I create that there is a family going on in heaven that's taking care of my twins the same way that I'm here taking care of my kids. So that gives me a lot of strength. I also joined, well, me and Jose, we joined an amazing support group up in the hospital in Westchester County, that kind of allowed us to speak about it without being judged, with hearing other people's situation. And when you realize that you're not alone, it changes you so much, because you realize like, oh, so this, I'm not the only one.
Right.
And not because I want to say, thank God my situation wasn't like theirs, but when you hear other people's pain and how they are trying to make themselves better, and it's like you could both can support each other, it was the most amazing thing.
And that will definitely. I have a question for that as well. Now you've mentioned your husband, Jose. Known him for the entire time I've been with my wife. Now you're half of a whole, and your husband took this just as hard. Even though he's not in the driver's seat of this journey you found yourself in, what was the shining example that we can get across to our listeners of how he did his best to be your rock, and then to help the men listening, to help, their significant other go through this?
Yeah, I actually felt like he took it sometimes a little harder than me,
Oh.
Which was, and like at the moment that we lost the girl that he actually expressed, he never gave up. He was there making sure that I was okay. He always told me, we, whatever you want. He supported me through the entire time. But the moment that we lost Kayla, that's when I saw him just break down and cry. And when I saw him crying, I think I cried harder there because I knew that he was trying to be strong for me the whole time. And it's like, I see him and it's like, at that moment, I felt like I let him down too. And it's like, I let us down. But when he saw me, and even from I hear from other people, when he saw me go through the moment that I had the seizure, because he was right next to me, how he got so like out of shape, crying and upset, and he couldn't control himself, thinking that he was about to lose me. I realized there that, hearing from more people, but I realized there that I had to fight and keep, stay alive. And when finally I got to see him again, he never said, "Oh, baby, we lost Kayla," and nothing. He was just happy that I was okay. He is like if I was born to him. So I think at that moment, I realized that he's not mad at me that we didn't keep the babies didn't make it.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, he was more happy that now, like, I'm still with him.
Right.
And anything I wanted, the only thing he couldn't do emotionally is go to church again with me. He couldn't.
Okay.
I think he was really upset at God. But to each his own. I couldn't tell him like, oh, don't be, because I'm not gonna force him to feel a certain way about religion. But he is Catholic, and it's just anger, and it's totally normal. But we spoke. He spent all the time that he wanted with me. He let me vent. He let me cry. Never said, "Oh, don't cry, let it go." No, I still took 2 weeks off from work after Kayla, and it gave me time to heal. Everyone was so supportive, and we decided to seek help. He would come with me to ensure that he received the help as well, because he knows he was destroyed emotionally as well. Very strong guy, but definitely a huge impact in this situation.
That's very important to get across. Whoever's listening, no matter how strong you think you are, trust me, you're not. And help, seek help. Don't care how strong you are. Don't care physically, mentally. Things will crack you. Things will dent that toughness. And, I've known him for a few years. He's a very charismatic person, very strong person, very passionate person. But that does not mean you could withstand the weather and weather the storm and be okay for it. Everybody needs help, from the weakest to the strongest. And that's very important. I'm glad that you got that across, because people need to know that.
Yeah, and when we went to those group, my husband likes to talk. He likes to be the center of attention. Sometimes I tell him that, he says no, but I say, "Oh, Joe, okay."
Let's just put it under the charismatic.
But yes, but it really helped that he spoke in that group. At first, I thought he was just there for me, but at one point, I felt like I was there for him. He talked more than I did, and he described every scenario. And in those conversations is how I learned how much it impacted him, what I went through after when I went into labor with Kayla, how afraid he was that he was about to lose me. So it helped. It helped that the men in that group made connection with each other, with the pain. We saw each other comforting other couples. Some situations were just crazy. And I was like, but why? Why is it that we always gotta like hold our tongue with our loved ones and not tell them how we're really feeling? Because you can't see that pain. You break an arm, you can see that.
Right.
But people can't see your heart.
That's right.
They don't know if it's gonna affect you or not. I still, to this day, because yesterday was the day Kayla would have been 8 years old. And I celebrate my babies every year like they were here. I will turn on the candle for them. I'll sing them happy birthday, even if it's just mentally at the time that they were born. And I make a wish that they're up there celebrating with somebody new that passed away in the family. And I've been to places that I go to either a funeral or I hear somebody passed away. And I say, like, make sure you look for my twins and tell them I love them. Because people that knew me well during the time that I was pregnant with them know how much I loved them. And to me, it was important. I felt like it was important that I would tell them that one day. So I always send that message with somebody that passes away. But every year I celebrate them. For the first couple of years, for the first 7 years, I think I just this year that I finally kind of eased myself out. I felt the need to turn on a candle every 6th of every month and every 12th of every month. And it was a way for me to stay close to them. And little by little, I said, the day that I begin to heal, I know that I won't feel the need to do that.
Right.
I did feel guilt at the beginning. There was one time that I actually forgot. I cried so much. It was early in the years, and I forgot to turn on my candle, and I cried so much. I felt like a horrible mom. And that's the pain that I was still feeling. I always found a way to try to stay connected.
And that shows that even going through this, it's, maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong, that it's normal that you beat yourself up more than not. And it's something that people need to understand, that it's part of the process. Even though, yes, someone can probably say, don't be so hard on yourself, but how hard is it not to be?
Yeah, it is hard. Like I said, sometimes you don't know how you're gonna feel, and you want to take control of that feeling. You don't want people to tell you how to feel.
Right.
So some people would say like, but it's okay that you could just turn it on right now. It's not the same thing.
Right. You're right.
It's not the same thing. And then it's like, you can't tell someone how to feel, especially at the moment that they feel so vulnerable. Like, it was like a reset of everything. I actually have a little story about a reset moment I had. So there's this company called Molly Bears, amazing company that actually creates a little teddy bear based on the weight of your baby. So my babies were about a few ounces. So they will make the teddy bear the same way, put some things that kind of remind you. So mine said like little angel wings, one pink, one blue. And to me, when they're free. They're made just to help the parents heal. I actually have shared with friends that have gone through that, and it's like having a piece of them. For some reason, I don't know, even still that connection. And
Right.
But I was going to be receiving that, and I received the email that is being delivered by, it was USPS, if you know their system, the worst. And I'm waiting Saturday. I cleaned the house, and I'm waiting all day, and I keep checking the app, and it says, I look at one point, it says that delivery exception, that nobody was home. I felt like my twins were taken from me again. Like I wanted to die. I cried. I went around looking for the truck, and he said, I think it was my other person and this and that. So I found one truck, and he didn't have it. So USPS, when they tire and they don't want to deliver anymore, they just put that there, and that's it. They pick up again on Monday. I did get them on Monday, but I felt that I was waiting so patiently because it takes months for them to create this.
Yeah.
And when I was waiting for it with so much hope, and that moment, I felt very destroyed. I cried all over, like it happened all over again.
Did you find that as a regular occurrence, where if you plan something for this, that you just basically not hit 100, but hit 1,000, and like go on a tear? Was that happening a lot?
Yeah, and it still happens actually, because even though it was Kayla's birthday yesterday, I was so busy with Jaden having games, Kylie dance, and like I wanted to be home to turn on her candle, because that's at least for the year. Definitely, I want to continue that. But she was born at 10:30 in the morning, and I wanted to be home, and I couldn't because I was at Jaden's game still, and I felt angry. I felt like anxiety inside, because inside of me, I feel like I was letting the baby down, and even though, I sang happy birthday from the basketball court, and I was just like, it was still not the same. I feel like, am I forgetting them? And I felt this guilt, like, am I forgetting them? Am I like letting them go? And then I always put a post. People say happy birthday, and I don't I don't even pay mind to what people say, and I appreciate it so much though, because the love helps. But to me, it's a way for me to send a message to her. So, it's not about attention. I want people to actually see that I'm okay. That now, even though it's been 8 years, I still think about them, love them, but I'm still here, and I can still move on, and I'm still strong.
Right.
So I don't post anything in a kind of morbid way. I just say, hey, happy birthday. I hope that so-and-so is throwing you a huge party, and like I would do here, and stuff like that.
Right.
In a more positive look, because those are still my babies. I am a mother of 5. No matter what, I delivered those babies, even though they didn't make it, but they're still my babies.
Now, what have you learned? What sort of mental strength tactics you learned? Because even though you said you still feel that way, you could still get ramped up if something doesn't happen the way you would like it to pay homage to them. What have you learned? What have you been taught, and what may have you realized to deal with that type of, just unbridled force of anger and whatever you feel? I mean, please let us know.
Yeah, I live in survival of the fittest mode. A lot of my friends be like, can't live in the evolutionary world. I'm like, I have to.
Mm-hmm.
I have to mentally tell myself, you gotta keep going. You have to be strong. Because right now it's not about me. I have 3 kids that depend on me.
Mm-hmm.
I have a husband, love him dearly. But at the end of the day, those 3 kids depend on me until they cannot anymore. So I can't give up on myself. I can't give up in doing what's best for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, we have no control of the things that happen. Um, I knew that. I remember during the pregnancy with Kylie and Jasmine. Those are my 2 little rainbows. Because after that storm, those were my rainbows.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being pregnant with Kylie, and I was scared. The joy that I felt, first I was trying for like about a year, because I just felt the need to be pregnant again, because I felt like I was robbed. It was a year after the twins, and I felt like they just stole them from me. And coincidentally, I actually found out I was pregnant in a year later, in between the twins' first birthday. So I felt happy for literally 30 seconds. All I said was like, thank God, finally, yes. But those were the happiest 30 seconds of my life, because after that, I just needed this baby to make it. So every single second, every time I went to the bathroom and nothing was leaking, every time I went to the doctor and my uterine lining was thick, every day, everything mattered so much more. Things that you wouldn't even think about. I had questions. Oh my God. I think those doctors were like, yo, she needs to like. So that gave me the strength. When you educate yourself and you realize that you can make things work if you're knowledgeable, especially knowing about how to make sure that doesn't happen, what you do have control. Because when it comes to a pregnancy, you really don't have a lot of control. So you gotta let your body do what it wants to do. So that mindset actually kicked in when I was pregnant with Jasmine.
Right.
With Jasmine was a different. First of all, she was a miracle. I didn't know I was pregnant until like about 9 weeks.
Right.
But at that moment, I realized that what's gonna happen is gonna happen. So I made sure that I continued my life the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
I kept going to the gym. I went to the gym until 2 days before I delivered this girl. I was 38 weeks and 4 days. And I was able to hold my baby strong. And I said, I can't be afraid every single second the way I did with Kylie.
Right.
Because it was crazy. It was very bad for my mental health. That moment, I said, no, working out is my way of dealing with almost anything.
Right.
So it gave me strength. It allowed me to continue moving forward. Of course, speaking to family members that either, for example, they've been through stuff like that, because at that moment, that's the moment that you actually realize that people go through this. You hear family, oh yeah, it happened to this one. And I'm like, why you guys never prepared me for like the stuff that I may be dealing with?
Yeah.
So that definitely made a huge change for me. Knowing that I was not alone. I'm not the only one in the family that went through that. So that kind of also gave me strength. Like if they survive, my aunts, ancestors, they survive. I can too. And everything for me is survival of the fittest. I keep going.
Now you said you, and if I don't quote you correctly, that's okay. What you said that you wanted to have another baby soon after. Now that feeling, was it a mental need, a mental want, or was you physically feeling that you wanted another baby? Like just something physically calling you, or you were mentally determined to have another kid, consciously determined to have
Yeah,
another
I
kid,
was so determined. And it was because
consciously determined.
I was
Okay.
consciously determined. I'm telling you, I became an expert on getting pregnant. And I tried, even though I had no issues in getting pregnant. I didn't use any methods to get twins. I didn't have to do any of that. But I felt such an emptiness inside in my heart. And I felt like I needed to be pregnant in order for the pain of losing my twins to go away. That doesn't work.
Okay.
Not at all. Because you actually, I never felt any type of like resentment about being pregnant, because I definitely wanted, but I was scared. What mom doesn't want to enjoy being pregnant?
Right.
So, and that first year, and then I had to be put on bed rest. And then I had my uterine lining was actually thinning at one point. So I was always scared. Every single day that I was scared that my baby was not gonna make it. And I said, I can't do this again. I cannot do this again. And I swore I'm gonna fight to the end to make sure Kylie makes it. And no more kids. Jasmine didn't like the idea. She decided to come. But definitely.
Now that worry that you had, to make sure you carry her to term, get her here, and be the awesome mother that you are.
Thanks.
What what would get you out of that? And correct me if I'm wrong, it's like maybe a spiral, because they say like if you feel a certain way, the baby feels it worse. So what would get you out of that basically worry zone to be like, you know what, I got this?
Well, reading. I made sure that I continue to educate myself in terms of like what was happening, even though they had to do a stitch in my cervix to make sure that the baby stayed. So I kept my mind focused on an end goal, and my end goal was to do whatever it takes to keep this baby inside. They put me on bed rest. I did that. No heavy lifting. They really didn't do anything with food, but I did the cerclage. I had to go weekly, which was the most difficult thing, to go and get progesterone shots and making sure that my body, didn't go into labor and when I made it to viability, which is 24 weeks, I decided that's when I shared it with the world. I was scared to even share that I was pregnant at that time. And it had to do because I saw and I knew how many people suffered for me, for what I went through. Okay. And I didn't want that again. I didn't want them to feel like that. I didn't want to get those people's hopes up. So at that moment, I'm like really caring about more other people than me.
So that 24-week cusp after you passed it, that helped ease those fears, and
Yes.
you're paying attention to your body, you're educating yourself on your health, but your mental well-being, that was kind of like the point where you're saying, you know what, I don't have to be scared anymore.
Yeah, that there was there I was like, okay. It was funny because I knew so much that I would say, okay, the baby's lungs are good. Okay. And then I got 26, the baby is fully developed. So everything was a huge milestone. Every week was a milestone. And me keeping myself looking forward to the following week and how the baby's growing. And then the following, that motivated me to keep going until I was like about 34 weeks and the uterine lining was thin. And they said, but we can give you this shot that can make the baby's lung, start working well. And I went to the hospital. I said, let's do it, because if this baby comes out tomorrow, I'll feel much better. So working with the doctors and kind of noticing how my pregnancy was progressing day by day really helped. I was working, so that was a good distraction. Jaden, still a handful, definitely a distraction. of that helped me deal with the loss of the twins. And but even though I was pregnant, I still always kept thinking about my babies, and I kept asking them to help me keep this baby inside. So
Nice.
that was big for me.
Okay. No, that's a great point to work on. Now we're going to have to swing into part two, and we will touch more on all the stuff you went through and get to more poignant ways of how you came out of this stronger than you ever were. And we'll get back to you in about a week, listeners. So this is FYI, I am damaged. Stay tuned for part two.
Yeah.